Well, let's do a Kia update video for the turbo stuff and everything else. I would say the biggest issue I face here is this thing had some problems and it melted the cat. And I thought it was just funny that after all this time, has like 300,000 miles, it melted the catalytic converter. I'm like, oh great, time to turbo it. And it hasn't always been spectacular since then. Also, I didn't have a breather on it at all. This used to go into like the stock air box and stuff, but I eliminated that. And it was filling like this entire spark plug, valve cover tray with like milky oil. So I started wiring all this in because I'm like, well, she's huffing anyway. And my buddy Ackerman did the awesome, look, it has the Whack Shack logo in there. We talked about this. I tried it. I have Snake Eater 60s. I tried it with truck 28 pounders, and I tried it with like the 50 some pound flex injectors also, because I can't really get it to run right. And it's tough because of all the integrated systems that are on it. The big one is, I'm like, well, no matter what happens, I'll disconnect the DI injectors and I'll just run it off the port, right? It runs awful when you do that. I think it's checking for resistance over the direct injectors, which, man, I looked up and I think they yank 26 amps and then hold a lower amperage just to fire the injector. It'd be awesome if someone could maybe clue me in, but this thing, it needs, in like a tank of gas, it needs like a quart of oil. I think I'll take a picture, or we'll pull out the catch can. I can't really do it while I'm holding my phone here to video. But here, look at how, this is just the breather. Look at how wet it is. Look at how disgusting that is. The catch can fills in a tank of gas, and it takes a quart of oil. So I think this thing just has no rings. And also, when I looked up melted cats and stuff, people are like, these motors melt the cats and burn the rings and everything anyway. So I did a compression test, and all across the board it has 90 pounds. 90, guys. It's supposed to, I looked up a service manual, and it said it's supposed to have 140, 150. So that's significant. It's almost 50% of compression lost. What's funny is it makes pretty much the same power because you're flooring it, but the compression is definitely not great, and it pings no matter what fuel is in it. It pings awful, and I think that's just because it's getting so much oil through into the combustion chamber. It's just running on oil all the time. And now I think the oil and stuff was blowing through, and that's what burned up the cat. I think the catalytic converter got a ton of oil in it, and that just like roasted it inside out. So now, like, when this is running without the cat, I mean, catless cars smell as it is, but this thing just smells like it's running on oil. It smells like a blown up diesel. And maybe I'll make another clip where I take the breather off and just show you guys it running. For fun, I did it like a diesel. I ran this longer, like a 3/8 air compressor hose that collapsed. I use it for dumb things. I put it out here and out the grill, like in this corner or this corner, and it just huffs. Like, it just blows yellow smoke the whole time it's running. So, I mean, it's not going to be ideal, but I'm just going to throw the turbo on and see how it does. It's not going to be great. It's not going to be as good as I thought. Certainly a port injection car, this would be extremely easy. If you had like a Honda Civic, you could easily do this. Or I think the 2012 and lower Kias are all port injection. I feel like this would be much easier, because as soon as I disconnect this, it gets mad. The other thing I thought of is seeing if there's guys that can flash these Bosch ECUs. Some people say you can. So what would be nice is maybe I can disable the DI, or, do a bunch of fixed values in there. But it kind of defeats the purpose of integrating. But this vehicle is really tough to integrate unless someone makes something that can make the stock computer happy. It can satiate all its needs, right? So we're just going to turbo it anyway. Plan to do that and see how it goes. So I bought a backup Kia. I got another Kia because if I can't get this to run right, it most certainly isn't going to survive the way I intended or thought I could. But what's funny is it's weird. So it'll randomly run a super rich air fuel. It's hard to get a consistent amount of fueling, all sorts of other things. And then to fix that, because I know for some reason it's like I'm missing things and I'm unhappy and I don't have a second O2 sensor, it's doing something. But what I should be able to do is just defeat the whole DI and run the port. So I unplug the port and it runs awful. Like, I don't know what it does. And here's what doesn't make sense. I'm running the coil packs, I'm running port injection, and I'm running the electronic throttle on my own, and it's still it barely runs. It seems like it has one cylinder running. But I'm doing spark and fuel and throttle. So what is it doing? So I unplugged, it has cam, adjustable VVT on intake and exhaust. I unplugged all that. I unplugged the cam sensors. I wanted to see like if I could fool it into running on completely batch. I know sometimes when you disconnect the DI, it goes into like a limp mode, so you can just like cruise around and idle, but it won't give you full on injection. It just runs on like low. I've heard of that. So it's on limp, but what is it doing? Like I'm controlling everything else. So what is it doing? So I'm like, okay, maybe it's not happy because inside this harness is the high pressure fuel thing. And when I disconnect that, it gets pissed for some reason. So I wired the high pressure fuel sensor sending unit separately on a DT connector to do that back and forth. So I'm trying everything I can, and I've tried all systems individually. I've tried different injectors. I've tried different coil packs. I have electronic throttle. I have both. I have the stock one. I have, this is my own. This goes down and plugs into. Everything works individually, but when you try to do it all and disconnect the DI, which I feel like I should be able to do, it does not work. So, I mean, that's where I'm kind of stuck with it. If someone could let me know how to like trick the DI, I know it's probably looking for resistance. What I thought about doing is this takes a ton of amperage. I think I can get resistors and hook them up to the DI, like it, so it thinks it's hooked up to the injectors. It has the same resistance. There's resistance in the manual. I think it's a couple ohms. Obviously, it's resistance. So I have to look that up. If you guys can let me know if I can get like a certain high wattage or hot, like almost like an injector box resistors, huge ones, and I'll try to get them connected into this. That would be awesome. See how that does. So I have another plan for this if this all goes south, which I don't really want to share because I think it'll be super cool, but I still want to see if this will work. So it's kind of a success, but it's kind of also not, because I knew this would be challenging, so I thought it would be funny to learn everything, but it's being much more difficult to defeat this whole system, and I'm not a CAN bus engineer. I wish I was. I'd have millions of dollars. Maybe I should take some night courses on it. Anyway, everything else is happy. Can't make it happy after I disconnect the DI. The DI at some point, it's good, and then I think I should log it. I think I have a bunch of logs. It seems like at some point, it just, at like 4,000 and up, it just runs insanely rich. Like if you look at my VE table, when this is doing ancillary injection, my VE table, I think it goes into like a safe mode, right? Like once you're winding it out, and I have the O2 unplugged. See, what happens is this is a factory wideband. So if you add too much fuel, it just yanks it out. So then if I take the factory wideband and plug it into my wideband controller for the Megasquirt, it still has like a default excess fuel amount at high RPM and high TPS. So it's still doing it. And then it does it if I have the throttle plugged into the Megasquirt or what. It can tell at certain RPM it just smashes the motor with fuel. So my VE table has like fuel, and then I have like almost none. And it's hard to predict when it does that changeover. So I might be able to iron it out or something. Or maybe once this thing makes boost, it'll be easier because maybe it'll top out the DIs pretty easily. Like if this comes up on 7 pounds, it might top out the DI system and it might be easier to fix the VE. So we're going to figure all that out. But it's very complicated right now for something that should be simple. So I'm trying to work that out. So let me know what you guys think about The DI, if you guys are familiar with defeating DI, some of you, or Bosch ECUs, I have a picture of the identifiers on the back of this ECU if you guys can help too. I've heard someone say you can't OBD2 flash these. You have to take them apart and bench them because you have to like touch pins on a workbench. So let me know if you guys can do anything. Otherwise, I'm just going to proceed and hang the turbo and everything else. See what happens kind of thing, because that's why it's taken me so long to update, because I wanted to give people something, but at this point, I'm not getting anything. I'm not getting what I wanted out of it. I'm almost ashamed to admit I have really no updates other than this slew of little gremlins, but I think just proceeding on and seeing what happens will be the most fun at this point. So, there's my 10-minute, 46-second long update. That's it.